Meeting of the negotiations between the DEA and Dickinson School Board to order, please. Everybody has a copy of the agenda in front of you. Review and approve the minutes of August 18th, 2015. All the members of each party should have a copy of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, they're fine with me.
Okay,
They're fine with the minutes.
the minutes are fine with the school board, DEA.
Okay, I'll send her reading them.
Jim, you see anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, looks good, Doug.
Okay, by consensus, both parties have agreed to the minutes as presented. Here's a copy for lead negotiator of each party to sign.
Now, seriously.
Okay, before we move on with item 3, just for information of the audience and the negotiating teams, I know that the secondary teachers today have to be at either the Ramada or the back by 8 o'clock, and so we'll be needing to be done by 7:45 this morning, so that everybody's aware. Okay, so the next topic on the agenda is tentative agreement on the salary schedule. The assistant superintendent has prepared a copy of the salary schedule with the calculating base of $36,000. That was discussed and agreed to by the parties at the last negotiations on August 18th. And so if you want to take a moment and look at that, we did not put a signature line on there. We just thought if it was agreeable to both parties that you could just sign on the bottom and put a date beside it.
You're all good.
And just so for the information of everybody at the table and for the audience, this salary schedule was sent out by the assistant superintendent in an email with the negotiated agreement as it had been amended up to that point.
It's just the average, so 5.5.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's obviously fine with us. We're fine with it.
Okay, so the board is satisfied with the salary schedule as it's presented.
Yeah.
DEA is satisfied. So if you would each just sign and date by your signature on the bottom of one, Ms. Fair and Mr. Wolf, and then you can exchange those.
That's a big picture.
Percentage? Okay, okay.
Yeah, I realized it.
I know.
Did it.
It's okay, I'll just sign mine and turn it back to you.
I put 7 instead of 8.
Wish it was 7.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I know.
I realized it after I handed it to you.
That's okay. Wait a minute. What are you trying to
I was
pull, Brian?
backpedaling. We're putting off to start school for another
There you
month.
go.
Wish it was July.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'd still be on my honeymoon.
Would you provide one of those to the kids? He has that one, okay.
We'll take a brief hiatus here while we wait for Mrs. Peterson to
Well, I thought I
return.
had emailed her last night too, and I guess I forgot.
Oh, okay. See, that's my house when I left this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just sat there for like a minute or two.
Yeah.
The sun came up.
pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
Yep.
First day of school for my son.
Is it in here?
DEA. I was in the locker room yesterday and found out that he passed some test that he had to, you know, so he doesn't have to take a test. This lady, his piano teacher told me. So I just sent him a text.
You ready, Mr. Fay?
Congratulations.
Okay, we'll
He
come
didn't even
back
go, "What did
to
you do?"
order.
He didn't even tell me.
The next item on the agenda is topic 4A, outside the day compensation, review and discuss possible contract language.
I guess I looked at our language that we talked about last week, and I know that there was an issue with the hourly rate, so I just figured that being as collaborative as we've been, if I change the wording, pay by our hourly rate to compensated by, and we can figure something out as a team, like as we have been doing so far, would help out tremendously. So that's all, that's the only change I made to this little sheet versus last time we saw it.
Well, for clarification, what we're still wondering is the only issue the curriculum night? Or is there other,
Or any others that might be added.
Right.
so it's not just curriculum night, which is what we were talking about earlier, that, or whatever that one event is, it's not just one item then? Because one item is maybe easier to deal with. So there's other, okay.
Well, it would be, you know, I guess it goes back to the conversation we had last negotiations when we said, you know, the teachers accepted the back to school open, you know, as that. And then when the second one came, they started to have an issue, and that's when, you know, they're wondering when's the third one gonna come? Because when we accept the second, then the third comes, and then the fourth.
Part of the school board's strategic plan is, I'll just read part of it here. It says all schools will implement an effective parent/community involvement plan. And under C, it says a curriculum literacy night will be conducted to increase parent/community awareness about the school curriculum. And so, you know, there's several groups that I'm sure came together and had different types of input as to where that came from. But for the school board, we're looking at parent engagement and teachers informing parents about the curriculum. I don't know how that happens between 8 and 3:45. So, I mean, I'm wondering what other kinds of ideas do you have to bring this, you know, to be able to meet with parents and tell them what their kids are learning? What is the curriculum about? Which is what we are interested in and what's in our strategic plan. That parent engagement piece is very important.
I guess when we did, you know, research, we sat and looked through a lot of contracts, and we're not the only district that must be struggling with this, because we had that other language from other districts. And so, you know, they're doing them curriculum nights, other things after hours, and compensating their staff. So it isn't that we're the only ones struggling with this. And if we're gonna implement this, if the board's plan is all schools, then it's not gonna be just the ones that had the grievance before that are gonna have a problem with it. It's gonna be all teachers, and it is a concern. So the other fear, sorry, Mr. Fay. The other fear with the members is if we tie it down to just curriculum night, what happens down the road when other new things come up and are added that are extra nights? Because it does cause a hardship for especially young families that have to come up with daycare and other things late at night when, you know, they have a spouse that works at night and the one that's a teacher or professional in the district works during the day and they don't have to pay as much daycare that way, then they have to find somebody at night, and it does cause other hardships. So that's why the compensation is, you know, really an issue.
And the other fear also, you know, we've already looked at accommodating parent schedules for things like IEPs. What happens when only a third of the parents can make it this night? Do we add another night to help another third of the parents get there, and a third night, and call them all curriculum nights to get the other parents there?
Well, for the school board's part, what we're saying is if we are, and I think we are probably talking about the same thing, if we're fixing curriculum night, we say, when's the next grievance coming? When is the next occurrence? Where you're saying, when's the next thing that you're going to make us do at night? We're saying, when's the next grievance? So how do we fix that? How do we fix that?
Well, I think that's where this language stating that mandated things can be compensated helps alleviate that. Because that was the problem with the grievance. That night was pushed onto the staff, the teachers, and there was no compensation for it. And so that's where, you know, if we would tie this down just to curriculum night and take the rest of the sentence that says mandated school-sponsored workshops, and then there's some examples there, that opens that up so that we wouldn't have so much chance of a grievance because we're going to compensate for school mandated.
And the school board did provide the remedy
Yep.
for the grievances, and so we feel that a precedence has been set there. So we would, you know, I think we'd probably like to go along that same lines.
And based upon the fact that, you know, everybody, you know, accepted that, I don't think that we could, I think that we could sell that. They just want to know that their time outside their contract is valued. You know, and that, and if they have to be called back in, it is valued.
Now, we heard last time that compensatory time does not work in the elementary schools. So we are looking for, I don't know why it doesn't work, but what an idea, I guess, here would be to give the principals give the principals that flexibility to provide that flex time, say, between 3:15 and 3:45, because we know you're not teaching it between those hours. So that would be one way. Yeah, we'd have to go, we'd have to go back to the old, some of that other language to get
I think the
everything
biggest
included.
concern though about that flex time from 3:15 to 3:45 is them elementary teachers are responsible for supervising kids after school till they're out of the building and picked up, and you know, them things after school, because them kids all don't immediately leave at 3:45 or 3:15, and so it's hard to get out of the building at 3:15. You know, that was one of the biggest concerns that I heard.
I think we do, Superintendent Sullivan, could you just clarify for what happens after school with supervision of students from 3:15 on? Do you know?
No.
You know, in regards to what the.
I don't believe that it is.
I know
Teachers are on the
that's,
playground watching
No,
kids.
but in the building.
I know that a lot of, in elementary school, I know outside, there are teacher aides. I've seen some teachers out there, but I don't know if they're assigned on a daily basis. I don't know the schedule well enough to be able to.
And if we do want to talk precedents, you know, the precedents that was set by the school board wasn't this flex comp time, it was a quarter personal day. To be used at the pleasure of the staff member.
So if we want to follow precedents, I guess that's what we could put in the line after compensated by. That it would be compensated by a quarter personal day.
Well, depending on how long
Right.
how long it is.
Well, quarter personal day is 2 hours is what we kind of, or 90 minutes, somewhere in there. Mr. Reap, right? 2 hours, yeah.
We'd have to look and see, what was our previous language on that? Yeah, the language that you've presented at the beginning isn't inclusive of everything that you have done in the past. I mean, we have those in the minutes, and we'd have to work on that language to make sure everything is satisfactory there. I'm looking for that piece. I don't know where it is.
Well, I was in favor of doing something for curriculum night, and if there was things that came up after that, because we kept hearing, first couple of meetings, it was curriculum night was the sticking point.
And that seems to have expanded now.
Yeah, so I don't know how much
How much more?
expansion, I mean, I don't even know if we'd
I
have.
don't think it's expansion, I think it's fear of expansion.
And I think,
Like I said, you know, if we're already making accommodations to help busy parents get there, you know, would curriculum night be 2 or 3 nights to try and get as many as we could get? That, you know, it's just the fear of that type of thing.
Well, and if we're doing contracts every year, I mean, that can kind of be taken care of on a
Well, it could be done
yearly
every year.
basis. I
Mhm.
mean, because we know what the calendar is already, we know
Yeah, it's
there's
already-
probably one curriculum night.
I don't even know if it's in the calendar this year. I don't even know.
So I don't, I mean, it opens up a lot more things, and I don't know, you know, how much people can read into things, and then other people are offended theirs wasn't covered, and I just think it's making it a little more difficult than it is right now for everybody to know how things are handled.
and, you know, I guess that's why I'll go back to reference the handout that we passed out when we had 4 other districts, Mandan, Devils Lake, Williston, and Newtown on there that were fairly, not broad, but, you know, encompassing language that didn't leave it just wide open or didn't lock it down to just one night.
But looking, I mean, most of the Class A schools don't do the outside compensation days from when we were looking at a lot of the contracts. There's a few, I mean, you can go pick a couple out, but for the majority of them, they're not doing the outside compensation days.
And are they doing district mandated curriculum nights and things like that?
Well, that is a good question, but I would assume there's things outside of 8 to 3:45 every once in a while. I
We
mean,
do outside
it
places
is.
3:45 every day.
But
and that's
I
what you
know.
get paid for.
Yeah.
But I just wonder how many of them Class A schools are doing some type of compensation and it's not in their contract, whether they're doing some type of a, for lack of a better term, stipend.
And I think, Mr. Hanson, your comment about if we're gonna do this yearly, we could, and this calendar's already set, we could make those adjustments, based upon that. As long as, nothing that new is gonna come up. We asked that the last time we negotiated, is there gonna be another night? And if you can tell us no, and curriculum night's it, that's all we're gonna get, we can just deal with curriculum night and be done.
Well, then I would assume if there was something that came up, there'd be grievances again, so it's, I'm sure that would be
And
something.
that's what both sides are trying to
We
avoid.
don't, I
Yeah.
don't, if we don't want.
So that's why if
that.
something came up, we
Right.
would know there would be a grievance, and we'd probably cover it in the language, the plan, so I think it's easier to fix the problem that we have now than try to, in this case, put a blanket statement out there that might cover something that may or may not happen and open a can of worms that
I think that,
foresees something.
I think that would be acceptable, because you're right, the curriculum night was the thing that started
Yeah,
the whole process.
and I have no problems compensating that with the quarter day or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, rather than, which we're struggling with, it sounds like, is contract language. What if we do what we did with that other item and we just have a memorandum of understanding regarding that? And we work on the language of that rather than trying to change the contract, which is problematic for everyone as soon as we start messing with language.
Well, it could be a simple statement in the contract that just says curriculum night will be compensated by 1/4 of day for curriculum night,
Yeah,
and be done with it.
works for me.
I mean, we could do something that simple.
Which one is it in the actual contract? Where is it in here? It's under contract day, right?
Yes.
Page 9.
Oh, thank you, Vince. So it would come under B1 or something like that? Is that what we're looking
Or
at?
B5.
Or B5? Maybe
Yeah.
B5? And then the question that I have is, so if we put that in, and you're talking just for specifically a parent engagement activity, which is whether or not we call it curriculum night, I don't want to say it's curriculum night and then we call it math night and then
Right.
we expect you to show up and it's all totally different. But if we put that in, so then are we going to continue to see grievances for say, a meeting?
But I don't,
The superintendent does receive several emails every time there is some sort of a meeting and asking if they're going to be compensated, because it is not in the contract. It's not a mandated or mandatory meeting. So we want to just, we'll try to resolve, if we can, that. If we can't, if we're just going to agree that it's a curriculum night or parent engagement night, then that's it. How are you going to handle that? Or are we going to talk about
Well,
it every year? It's
and that
one
was why with this language, we had in there mandated school-sponsored workshops. If it's not mandated, if that meeting is voluntary, that isn't mandated. They're not required to be there. If I volunteer to be on a district committee, that's not mandated.
Right.
I don't think there's,
Having AP students come to a screening or extra time to study is not district mandated.
and we're not ever gonna have language that solves
Right.
every problem.
No.
There's always gonna be a grievance, no matter how the language.
We don't have a magic crystal ball for any of us to see the future. And
I think we just take care of the issue that's up with curriculum night and
if we have to add something in the future,
doing that next year.
and that's why I think just a simple statement.
Dr. Sullivan, since you're the one who has to deal with this, do you see issues with adding that to the contract, or would you prefer a memorandum, or how do you see how this is going for you, because you're the one who has to carry out the procedure?
The advice that I would give to the parties is that good language prevents problems. And frankly, none of the language that has been discussed by either party
Yeah.
solves everything at this point. There has to be some way to get to that. But right now, I can see a lot of potential headaches for everybody in terms of the DEA and the school board with the language that we have out there. You know, it might be best at this time, just as a suggestion, to do a memorandum of understanding on curriculum night with the understanding between the parties that it may be discussed again in the next negotiations to put something into the negotiated agreement if some language can be identified over the course of the next few months that provides some additional clarity.
I don't think a memorandum of understanding would cover, would stop a grievance if something would happen, because it's not binding. Where a negotiated agreement kind of is binding.
Why would a memorandum of understanding not be binding?
Because it's more of a gentleman's agreement.
Not if it's signed.
Yeah.
I mean, if both parties sign it, I mean, we've been doing that all along, signing off on individual negotiated topics.
I'm wondering if, I mean, I do like that idea, I hadn't considered it, but perhaps it's best, because we do want to settle this contract and start school and give it, you know, get the correct salaries out. Could we have a memorandum of understanding, and just as a suggestion, if we could continue to somehow work on this particular issue, maybe meet in 2 or 3 months or something, just to continue to work on this and bring it forward the next time. I mean, but you have, at least you have the memorandum that says, you know, you're going to be compensated if there's a curriculum night or some kind of parent engagement night.
I guess we could add into that memorandum of understanding that that will be a topic discussed for the next contract.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe something will come forward in that time frame that'll assist both parties.
That sound all right? Okay.
So at this point, my understanding is that the parties have a consensus that for the time being, a memorandum of understanding will be drawn up concerning curriculum night with a statement in there that this will be a topic of discussions for the next round of negotiations for the 16-17 school year.
I believe so.
Okay.
Dr. Sullivan,
Ms.
just to
Schubert?
clarify that it is one curriculum night
Yes,
on the, okay.
yes.
Of approximately 90 minutes is,
Approximately
you know.
90 minutes in length.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, the administration will work on some language and distribute that to the parties hopefully this week. That takes us to topic 4, number 2, grievance procedure, review and discuss possible contract language revision.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Fay?
a couple meetings ago, we sat down and basically said, what's the problem? And the answer to that question was that the administration and school board had deadlines where the teachers didn't. So I sat back and over the weekend and looked, okay, if that's the problem, let's fix the problem. So I took the old grievance procedure and added to it deadlines that would affect teachers. On discussion with our grievance chair, who would like to keep the fact that there is no time limit for a teacher to file for a grievance, and understanding that was the concern of the school board, said they could live with 90 calendar days, 3 months. Then adding to it the 14 calendar days across the board for everybody. To the principal, to the teachers, to the next step, to the superintendent. And then added the final line, number 6, of the timeline may be extended by either party by mutual agreement of both parties. And this was precedence set when the school board asked DEA permission to extend the time at the last grievance and was granted.
Right.
I think this fixes the problem.
And also the adding of excluding legal holidays helps with that timeline.
Christmas and New Year's.
I'm comparing what you, do you guys want these? Does someone want those? Because we have copies. Did you want, these are yours.
I can pass them up.
Yeah, you guys want them? There you go. Anyway, I'm comparing the one that I had put together last time, and I made some notes on there, to the one that Mr. Fay handed out. I think we've got, I think I had a few extra copies. Do you guys have those? This is the one that I did last
I
time.
wasn't at that meeting, so.
Okay.
You need-
And I guess the first thing, if I could address, was just address the timeline. Last time, we had put in there a time limit of 30 days, and last time you said 60.
And that was before we talked to the
Grievance.
committee, and having an active grievance committee is important, and we listened to their concerns as well, and that was why I changed it.
And the one that was passed around is actually our current grievance. We just added and changed there, so
Yeah.
we're not changing the whole contract, just making some.
Yeah, well, and really, if you don't know within really even 30 days, but to me 45 days maximum, that there is a grievance, that you may, I don't think that 90 days is solving anything, just giving more time to figure out if there's a grievance. 45 days would probably be the max of what I would be interested in looking at. And we can change that as far as whatever kind of calendar days or whatever we would want to. But the other thing I'm thinking, with the legal holidays you have in here, what I might just want to change that to is maybe just say school holidays as defined by the Century Code. Then we're all totally clear what holidays are excluded.
What school holidays does the Century Code cover?
Oh, yeah, we've got copies here. It's, I think there's two there. You want one of those? And kind of your usual school holidays.
would you suggesting then that we would include all Sundays too, according to Central Code? That's
Well, I don't know. It doesn't, yeah, it can be. But last time we talked about the difference between calendar days and working days. So we just have to decide what holidays we're going to use. I mean, Sundays are fine to include in there with me. I mean,
I think B through I are very appropriate, absolutely. And J is kind of up in the air.
yeah, that is, yeah. Mhm.
J doesn't solve anything.
No.
So we could reference that if we wanted to, the specific thing in the specific subsection, if we wanted to, B through I.
Does 14 days change anything under
Well,
days breakdown?
I'm just waiting until you're done discussing this with a couple of comments that I,
It
because I had it.
increased the time for everybody
From 10 to
from 10
14.
to 14. And 'cause I know that Superintendent Sullivan wanted 20, and it just made it even for everybody.
One of the things we looked at with 20 is if you take 20 days and somebody uses the whole 20 days, so say the principal does, and then the teacher uses their 20, and then the superintendent uses his 20, pretty soon we're at 60 days in a hurry.
Yep, you are.
Where if we're trying to set a timeline to hurry things along and get them done, 14 was kind of a compromise in between that 10 and 20 to get us to the 2 weeks, you know.
If
I
you
mean-
wanted to hurry and get something done, then.
Put it all
you
back
can
to
wait-
10.
We can wait 90 days though, just to file a grievance. I mean,
Yeah, you're
But,
talking a long
you know, I
time
mean-
there.
And actually, when we visited with the grievance committee, they did suggest 120, and we said, well, 90 is more realistic. You know, that gives pretty much half of a school year if something is gonna be a problem, you know, rather than, now it's wide open, there is no time limit.
I just, in looking through this, I see there's just a couple things that were left out. In your step 2, let's see, that would be after the second sentence. There is no time limit on when the teacher would prepare and submit a written grievance request to the building principal. We had suggested within 10 days on that one. And then down on number 5, and I'm gonna just speak to.
That would be my
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we were gonna add
I
14.
actually had intended to put 14 days
Okay,
for the,
okay.
for the teacher to do
Right.
every step as well. I mean, so that,
Yeah.
I did try
that's
to
okay.
do that, so that was my mistake, I just missed adding that.
And then down on number 5, and what I wanted to just speak to this, because we just went through grievances, which would be after the second sentence. It says, "The grievance we place on the agenda for the next board meeting." And this sentence, we have the board, and what I had handed out, the board may take up to 2 regularly scheduled meetings to render a decision on the grievance. Just having gone through that, you kind of do need that time. We felt that was rushed. We needed to have, you need to have a special meeting and so on. So, and we still felt we didn't have enough time to make that decision. So, having some time, and I think you also should have a time limit so that it just doesn't hang out there for 6 months or something, or 6 meetings, but, having some sort of time limit, 2 regularly scheduled meetings, having time, I think would be helpful to add that back in. The one meeting to hear, then there was additional questions that came up, and having one more meeting then to be able to get those questions answered or to ask for additional information. Those are my comments. I think number 6 is that you have is fine, Mr. Fay. Superintendent Sullivan, go ahead.
Just one comment on item number 6. There's, the language by either party seems unnecessary, since it's the intention of the parties have to do this by mutual agreement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Time might
So
be
I would suggest
extended.
that those 3 words by either party should be stricken.
Okay.
I'm okay with that, because that's my brain at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It's all right. Did you, since...
And I just want to make one more
Yeah.
comment if I could. I understand the rationale of the DEA with some uniformity to the 14 days. I understand that, and I understand the thought process. But as a superintendent, I will tell you that the requirements for me are often much different from the requirements for the principal in terms of looking at an issue. And the current contract language recognizes that by providing the superintendent with 50% more working days than what is required at the principal's level. Current contract language provides 15 working days for the superintendent as opposed to 10 days for the principal. And I would suggest that 20 days is necessary in some occasions for the superintendent to look at an issue. We
And
have
I can understand that with the
Having
busyness,
70.
with the business of your schedule as well. And I certainly can take that under advisement
Yeah.
and look at changing that. I'm looking at the one that you just passed out, Mrs. Fair, as well. And it goes back to the statement, the definition of grievance, which, and the first paragraph, I still think is unratifiable by our group because it is limiting them to, again, just what's in the negotiated agreement, just what's in the individual contract. It doesn't deal with anything with working relationships and working conditions and things like that, which is covered under the current grievance procedure. And I think that wasn't the problem when we asked what the problem was. The problem was timelines.
Yeah, and what I wanted to speak to there, if we're putting a procedure in a contract, it should speak to the contract. We do have policies and procedures in place for things that are outside of the contract for any person to use. And that's where we would be coming from, and, just putting it, this is what the contract is, so if there's a problem with the contract, here's how you grieve it. If it's something else, there's another procedure to use. And that's where we were coming from in that.
I do agree with Mr. Fay though, because the feedback that we received, after the last meeting from a majority of the members who had talked to us was, all we're hearing is the problem is the timeline. It's not that we're having grievances or issues with the definition of a grievance. So it goes back to let's fix the problem and not try and fix things that haven't been a problem.
Okay.
So,
I see what you're saying. Okay, then,
And I
yeah.
would, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I would expect that, if we grieve something that does fall under policies and procedures, that it would be routed that way.
yeah, I would hope that the principal would say, this is something we need to take care of in a different way than a grievance when that conversation happens,
Oh, I see what
the
you're
first
saying.
contact.
Yep.
Okay.
I would hope that
I see that rationale. Yep, I see that.
And I know, as a bargainer, I've had people come to me and say, well, this is happening, what do I do? Well, it isn't something that's in the negotiated agreement, that's something you need to take up on a note with the principal. So a lot of them things get taken care of before they ever become grievances, which obviously you wouldn't know unless you're told about it.
I see what you're saying. Yep,
It is.
yep.
I thought this was gonna be quick.
Almost there.
Close.
It is 6:45, and so we do need to move the agenda. And I'll do my best to debrief. There's been a lot of things discussed this morning. And I think that both parties have made a lot of progress towards resolution of these negotiations. And so just for the debriefing, the parties reviewed and approved the minutes from August 18th, 2015. Parties signed a tentative agreement on the proposed salary schedule with a calculating base of $36,000. Parties on outside the day compensation agreed to a memorandum of understanding that will be prepared by the administration, that this topic will be a topic of negotiations during the next round of negotiations, that it relates to one curriculum night of approximately 90 minutes in length. And the parties have discussed the proposed grievance procedure. I hope that I get all of this right. That there was a sentence missing from item number 2 for 14 days for the teacher to file a written grievance with the principal, a formal written grievance with the principal, which was an oversight, which will be incorporated into item number 2. That 14 calendar days, 14 calendar days excluding legal holidays will be referenced as excluding school holidays as defined by the North Dakota Century Code. That the superintendent's 14-day time limit will be extended to 20 days, and that in item number 6, the words "by either party" will be stricken. Did I get everything? Okay, so setting the next meeting date and time and the agenda for the next meeting, I want to talk about the agenda very briefly. It would seem to me that the agenda would include review and hopefully signature of the memorandum of understanding regarding outside the day compensation, and then the further discussion on the grievance procedure. Okay.
Could I just clarify? Mr. Fay, are you going to put all this together? Would you like,
Yeah,
will you like Mrs. Peterson or me to put it together?
I have it saved on my computer. I can just make the quick changes.
Do you want to do that and just send it over to me?
Yep.
And then we can highlight or something, or you can highlight and then we'll be ready? Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you. Yep. The next meeting then?
So the next meeting date and time.
That works.
It works out for you guys.
Mornings?
Mornings work best.
Yes.
Do Tuesday morning?
Next Tuesday is September 1st. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm off the rest of the week after that.
Okay, you're out the rest of the week. I'm free all day on the 1st. It looks like. What are your schedules?
I'm good. Mornings are good for me.
Mornings are good
for me.
Do we want to start that a little earlier so we have more time? I mean, and we would have a few
I
more
don't think
minutes.
so. We just have the one.
We should
Or just
10
have one.
minutes.
I've heard that before.
I know.
Well,
We have heard it before.
I think we'll do 7.
7
7.
on September 1st.
Yep.
September 1, 7 a.m. All right.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so the next meeting date and time is scheduled for September 1st, 7 a.m.
Yep.
Here in this room. Okay, meeting's adjourned.